Hey there, all my Rotation 411 initiates. So today we're going to continue on with lecture 4, and when I get a chance, I'll link the playlist in the description and the comments below. I, I, time just goes by so fast. So we're going to spend about 30 minutes today and just get as far as we can get. So we left off on the question audience, or we were talking about Placidus' first whole house system, Liz Green's beliefs on it. If you haven't caught on yet, we're reading the outer planets and their cycles. So let's see here. I just got a new client order, so it's telling me that there. All right, audience. Many textbooks say that the 10th house is the father and the fourth house the mother. So we kind of touched on that in lecture 4, part 2 as well. She was kind of saying that the 10th house is a little bit more than that. It's like the great mother. So let's see. So Liz says, yes, I know. That's yet another unsolvable problem. And I was telling you guys, it's kind of like a spectrum thing. Like it represents the parents. So it can kind of be interchangeable, whether it's the bottom of the chart or the top of the chart. Sometimes mothers play a more prominent role in the 10th house, midheaven. Like for me, my 10th house is ruled by Cancer, which would be the traditional fourth house. I have a reverse natural chart. If you've been following along, you've heard that before. But so for me, it's like a little bit of both in reversed. So for me, it's definitely a spectrum. But let's see a little bit more about how Liz elaborates on this. 1 second. Okay. I think the 10th house represents the mother because in my experience, that is who the house describes. Now that's very interesting because like I just told you guys, but again, I have a reverse natural chart. So I always just assumed for most of you, it's going to be the opposite way. But in a natural chart, you know, Capricorn would be the father, Cancer would be the mother. Cancer is a very maternal energy. So that's why most of us astrologers connotate the IC or the bottom of the chart, the fourth house, which is traditionally ruled by Cancer, as the house of the mother. Anyways, I keep kind of reiterating, but by this, I don't mean that planets in the 10th say that what kind of person the mother is on a behavioral level, but I think the psychic inheritance from the mother is indicated. So, for example, for me, my 10th house is in Capricorn. My mom's a Capricorn. So, if any of you, your 10th house is the same sign as your mom, let me know. That'll be interesting. I think for a lot of you, it's going to be your 4th house. That's the sign of your mother's sun sign. All right. Very often, it's her unconscious life that is represented. Now, I do feel some tie there with, and I've seen it not just with me, but I'll just use me for quick. My ascendant is Libra, and my mother's midheaven is Libra. But then at the same time, my father's ascendant was Cancer, and my midheaven is Cancer. And I know someone close to me, I've looked at it recently, it has sort of a similar thing going on. I think their midheaven might be the sign of their mother or father. Holy cow, let's go with scissors today. Hi Hooji, hi Altruis. Thank you. Hi Lafayette. Thanks for the love. Okay, just keep it appropriate in the comments. All right. Very often, it's the mother's unconscious life that is represented in one's midheaven or 10th house cusp. The unlived drives, which were very strong in her but not properly expressed. Or you could also say that the planets in the 10th house describe the psychic images of the mother which we carry, which may not be wholly conscious and may not always correspond to how she acted. So then it becomes, so it's kind of saying Liz Green, thinks that the 10th house, I'll just kind of repeat this part, uh, is the unconscious life that the drives of the mother that weren't, which were very strong in her but not properly expressed, it then becomes a child's responsibility for carrying. So it kind of reminds me of like pageant parents, you know, and they live like through their kids, they say. That's how Liz is describing the midheaven right now, or the 10th house, as her thinking it relates to the mother. It's sort of like the things, say if the mother was a housewife, but she really wanted to be a corporate attorney, then if your midheaven, you know, your midheaven has something going on like that and you become a corporate attorney, there would be a tie there, is what Liz Green is saying. So if maybe you have Saturn in Sagittarius on the midheaven, that seems very corporate attorney to me. Thanks, Elliot, for listening along. Okay. Thank you, Masad. All right. So, anyways, it says, but if you dig a little into the person's deeper feelings about the mother and look for the traces in his relationships with women in general, I would say his or her, but we'll go with it, you can see that the figure represented by the 10th house is very powerful in the person. The 4th house seems to me to say the same kind of thing about the father. It's a psychic inheritance of the father. So we were talking about Neptune, like Sun Square Neptune. She had met someone, and this woman kept marrying like alcoholics because her father was one. So when I first had my chart done, my Neptune is on my IC, which normally represents the mother, but mine's in Capricorn, which I always thought of as the father because that's what traditionally rules the MC. So she's saying, um, you know, so the first astrologist I had my birth chart done by, he said, "Oh, you have Neptune in the 4th house. Did your father have a drinking problem?" And I thought that was very interesting. So I guess maybe he was reading the way that Liz Green would read it, which is reverse to what I've heard. So, let me know if you are following along, not just to keep me company, because I know a lot of you are, and some of you, you're just kind of barely getting your toes wet in the astrology thing, or just kind of finding out a little more and stretching your minds. But for those of you who are a little deeper and know more background, let me know what you think in the comments about, what's your traditional way of looking at it, or what have you found as far as the midheaven and the IC, the 4th and the 10th house ruling the father and the mother archetypes. Hi, 45 UI. Okay, so anyways, the point has been raised, and so she says the psychic inheritance, that's, Cancer is a very psychic sign, so that's an interesting way. And then, the 10th, so kind of going to the way I read it, the 10th house is about reputation. So this is sort of fulfilling, what your mother wanted to become, is what Liz is saying. And then the IC is about, psychic, intuitive, nurturing. So that would be sort of what you're getting from the father in the way that she's saying it. That's how it would sort of tie to how I traditionally look at it. I'm from the West Coast of the United States. Okay, so it says the point has been raised in various places that this connection of 10th with mother and 4th with father applies because of the particular parental structure in our society. That may be true because in Western families, not much is seen of the father, while the mother is omnipresent and is a much more powerful psychological force. So she's kind of giving it to, like, maybe in traditionalism, the father was more represented, right? Because we took his last name and everything, most of us. So that would be your reputation. But nowadays in America, or like Western cultures like Europe, a lot of us, our mother sort of rules the show. A lot of fathers, especially since like, the 1980s, are not in the picture anymore. So the child's, identity, as far as their status, which is, identity is a little more ascendant, which is the cusp of the first house, but their status in life is a little more dependent on their mother and how she cultivates them. Oh no, agape, I get what you're saying, but that's like a little bit deeper than we're going, right? Because we're just discussing like the fundamental ideas here before we get too existential. I get what you're saying. Um, she does talk about Freud in here, and I even touched on, I'm not sure how legitimate it is, Freudian concepts, because now I've heard a lot of crazy things about Freud. I think in that book Chaos, which I need to read, they kind of discredit Freud a bit. So it's so we're just going over fundamental ideas before we can go deeper, agape. But if we're not there yet for you, that's fine. If I make a video looking more into the mother, we've got Mother Earth and Gaia and the eternal womb, if you've seen like the ayahuasca images. So there's definitely a lot that can be discussed about the idea of mother, but for right now we're just discussing how it's represented in an astrology chart. Not, and there's a lot of different areas in that chart. So it's not, we're not looking at the big picture of things. We're just looking at how we can make predictions based on sort of the remnants or the footprints of energy as a trail left behind, from what's actually happening, which is much more complex. So, anyways, the point has been raised in various places that this connection of the 10th, okay, so not only because she gives birth to us and nurtures us at the beginning, but because she's often the only one there during most of childhood. I don't really know whether the 10th house is the mother or whichever parent happens to be playing the mother. Some people feel the latter is the case. Sometimes you see exceptions, but not very often. I would say I would have more of an exception there. I think it would be a valid generalization to say that the orientation of our culture is a patriarchal one. Because law is so terribly important as well as outer achievement, right? Because the 10th house rules outer achievement, success, and also government structures, corporations. Thank you, 45 UI. My IG is rotation 411. Okay. By this, I don't mean that men rule us in the way an extreme feminist would. Also, if you guys want to go in the database, the moonmatch.love, you can enter the database to be matched with your best astrological match. I am currently in a relationship, and I don't recommend you do it if you're in a relationship, but you if you go in there, you can see if you match with me along with like different celebrities. So it's kind of cool. Exactly. But as within, so without, right? Um, but this by this I don't mean that men rule. So it's kind of goes agape, just to kind of give an example. It would kind of be like biology, right? We can look at things at a cellular level, at a muscular level, and it's holistic. So if you want to find out about your body, for example, you can look at the different systems in it, like your skin, the integumentary systems, what that is called. But to get the whole of your health in your body, you got to look at different areas. So that's kind of what we're doing here. We're just looking at the different pieces, and then that helps us accumulate the whole, because like I said, as below so above. So it's like, if you're looking at the micro of it, like, okay, let's just look at our astrology chart. This is a vibration or representation of the macro of it, which is much grander than us. So anyways, uh by this I don't mean that men rule us, okay, in the way an extreme feminist would think, but both men and women in our society tend to give more value to intellectual achievement, material success, structured family life, a society governed by clearly defined laws and hierarchical social system. So she's saying the patriarchal values are just kind of agreed upon by men and women. It's not that we have some, anyways. This is perhaps a reflection of the religious values which have been dominant for us for many centuries, which are Judeo-Christian, and which postulate the highest spiritual values as masculine. I'm not suggesting that this is good or bad, because societies produce the values they need at any given time in history. But I think that this emphasis on one end of a pair results in the compensation of the unconscious in the other direction. Just as in an individual, too much emphasis on the intellect will cause an upheaval in the psyche from the feeling side. So the real psychological power in the home is wielded by the mother, whose value is less in the world's terms and therefore becomes greater in the unconscious. We are all horribly bound up with mother. I think this is why every person who propounds any kind of psychological theory places such an enormous emphasis on her. Kind of going back to what I was saying, Agape. Yes, I do know Joe Dispenza's work. I actually ordered many years ago one of his courses, like his, I'm really into NLP. Dang, I thought it was right here. I just got this book. From Frogs to Princes. It's a very simple little book, but I did some NLP, and I was just thinking the other day how I did feel like some reframing exercises had worked, looking back about a year and a half later, how some, it was almost like, I don't want to get too far into this right now, but it was like something that I kind of bypassed when I was younger, because of certain things that had happened that maybe I wasn't confident enough for, kind of came full circle in the last year since I did the NLP, which is kind of like Joe Dispenza's, like you can retrain your brain and things like that. So yes, definitely like Joe Dispenza's work, but I kind of got off there as far as, let's see, did I lose my spot here? No, I think we might have skipped. No, we must have done that yesterday. All right, you guys. So I'm gonna just keep reading and it'll come back to me if it's important. That's my new thing. It'll come back to me if it's important. I have Neptune conjunct my natal Mercury right now, so sometimes stuff just kind of leaves. All right, anyways, goes into the great abyss of the, I'm not suggesting that this is good or bad because societies produce the values they need at any given time in history. But I think that this emphasis on one end of a pair results in the compensation of the unconscious in the other direction. Just, oh yeah, okay, just as if somebody's too intellectual, they need to, um, adhere to their emotional side as well. The mother, I think, is very pronounced kind of psychologist. Oh, so this was kind of going back into, she says, any psychologist is going to say the mother is important. That was kind of Freudian. So I don't know, after what I'm hearing about Freud lately, because I think it's in the book Chaos. I've got to read it though. And I was saying, I know it might be a little leaning, a certain leaning way as far as political ideology. I'm not for certain that it is. It might just be sort of like a radical history book, but I just have to read it to integrate it into what I already know to see if there's anything in there. I'm sure there's a few nuggets of wisdom in any book. You're always going to get more out of a book than you would get out of like a Google page. So perhaps the 10th house represents the parent who is the strongest representative of one's fate, the thing which shapes the person. So mother is that person in a world structured as ours is. I don't know. These are just ideas. In actuality, I think the 10th house is the mother's because in my experience of reading charts, that is how it seems to come out. So she's basing it more so on, she just sees this time and time again, which is like always going back to synastry, because that's what I specialize in. When I'm looking at if a couple is compatible or not, you can go to Cafe Astrology. One of my clients that gave me a bad review is like, you can just read what she's saying on Cafe Astrology. Yes, you can confirm your own synastry. I'm not making it up out of thin air that, you and this person have these planets aspecting and yada yada. But the thing is that when you go to a site like that, it's just like positive aspect, negative aspect, positive. And me, I'm very clear. I'm like, okay, if you have a deal breaker or divorce aspect, it doesn't matter how many positive aspects that you have. Okay. So like, that's what I've seen over and over and over. Very few exceptions, and there are more and more because, the more you look, the more, there's going to be a variance of exceptions. So that's why we encourage my clients at first and foremost, if I can talk, to follow their own hearts, because some of you will make it. But I also say, if you do have something like that, is it really worth it? And if it's coming to an end, maybe it can give them a little closure a little sooner as well. But with that being said, I just got off on another tangent again. So she's saying, as she looks at all her clients' charts, it always seems to align that the midheaven's the mother, which is very interesting because most astrologists these days, since 1980, when she's saying this, subscribe to the midheaven as the father. I have a reverse natural chart. I already mentioned that earlier. So for me, I would be a case example for her. Mine does represent the mother. It's my mother's sun sign. So if you guys do know your birth charts, I'm really interested. Go see if your midheaven, your 10th house cusp, is ruled by your mother's sun sign or even maybe her moon sign. Like I said, there could be, like with me and my parents, there could be a match between your midheaven and ascendant with your parents. So yeah, if you guys know your birth charts, you follow along that deep, let me know. Some of you might know right off the top of your heads. But anyways, I'm going to take a survey on that. I should do like a little quiz, but I forgot to, like a poll. Maybe when we have a bigger audience, like we could do that, like a poll. How many of you's mother's sun signs are your midheaven sign? Okay. Anyways, if you do work, okay, I don't know. These are just ideas. In actuality, I think the 10th house is mother. Okay. If you do any work in counseling or psychotherapy, you very quickly discover the phenomenon of the absent father. Everyone seems to have an absent father. The father is the hidden parent, the one about whom least is known. But he is the source, and it's his name we carry. Okay, I kind of touched on. The 4th house is the hidden origin, the place from which we come. I call it, it's like the private house, right? The private home sector, the seed of which we are a product. Father is so often a lost image in our world. He's away at work or off to war or preoccupied, or he divorces or separates, then mother gets the children and he has weekend visiting rights, if he's lucky nowadays. because these divorce lawyers are getting more and more brutal. But anyways, we don't always know who father is, but we often have a surfeit of mother. I don't know what surfeit means, so um, she becomes Saturn for many people. The figure with the scythe who draws the line of one's development and castrates or cuts down anything which tries to move beyond her. I wouldn't want to postulate the sociological reasons for this because I am never sure how much is social conditioning and how much is archetypal and whether you can really separate them. So she's saying, it could be the midheaven represents the mother because we live in a patriarchy and we're mostly overseen by our mothers in that, but under that patriarchy, which is the father of Saturn. So it's very interesting. She's making a very good case for this. A lot of times I'll tell you guys, oh, I agree with this, or, I don't agree with that. This is, okay, she's definitely expanding my mind on the I see in the midheaven now. So now I'm going to look at it as both parents, instead of one or the other. Audience, can you comment on what happens when Jupiter is aspecting one of the outer planets? Oh, and this reminds me too, as she brings up Jupiter. The other day I had a reading, and I mean, I've had so many lately, but I did a reading for a client. If you ever want a reading for me, it's rotation411.com. But she had Jupiter on her midheaven, and I think she was on the precipice of her Saturn return, or she might have been 24. I had one of each lately. So 24 is your second Jupiter return. And then your first Saturn return happens around the age of 29. So I had one of each in the last few days. But I was telling her with Jupiter on her midheaven, she most likely will have a very successful partner. And, she may meet them in the career sector because Jupiter represents the spouse in a woman's chart and the midheaven is career. But then now that I'm just kind of reading this, I was thinking another thing I would tell to her, if she comes back or I get the chance to, she might not come back for a while and I might forget, but, my clients come back at different intervals. But I would tell her, Jupiter on the midheaven will also mean, it can mean social acceptance. So it's like, not only is this your spouse that's chosen for you or whatever, however you want to put it, like the right one for you, it's also going to be socially accepted with a harmonious Jupiter placement, or Jupiter on the midheaven is reputation. So this person could bring her more status. Like somebody who has Jupiter, I told her this as well, Jupiter on the midheaven can mean you have a lot of fame and status, kind of like midheaven in Leo can do. So if somebody's Jupiter's on the midheaven, I would say that the father would approve, but the way that Liz is saying it, even more so, I would tell her that your mother will approve, because that's even more important in a lot of instances, that the mother approves, right? So, of the spouse. So, or if the mother's not around or something, it might be, the greatest wish that a mother could have for their child is that they would get, with someone very successful, because that's what Jupiter, especially for a woman on the midheaven, she's probably going to marry someone pretty successful. Anyways, if she's not just extremely successful herself or both, because a lot of times you get successful and then you find someone successful. So anyways, let's consider Jupiter first. I think that Jupiter is connected with the urge to believe in something, with faith and optimism in the future. Saturn is a bit like the stick with which the donkey is beaten from behind that gets him moving. But Jupiter is the carrot dangling in front of him that he's forever trying to reach. Jupiter says, quote, "This could be better. You could be more than you are. You have potentials you haven't even lived yet." End quote. Jupiter is concerned with what might be rather than what is. He's the character in the play who whispers in everyone else's ear that life could be a lot more interesting. And what a nice person like you is still doing in a place like this. That's like very Sagittarius to me too, because Jupiter rules Sagittarius, and Sagittarius are always traveling around, and they're really good at motivating people and talking them up and kind of giving them different perspectives, right? Because it's wisdom also, the ninth house Sagittarius. So I could see, Sagittarius like, what are you doing here, because they're just traveling through because they rule travel. All right. Anyways, and also this reminds me back to Agape Rising that it reminds me of like the law of attraction or Joe Dispenza, this way she's describing Jupiter. Like, do not focus on what is, focus on what you want. So when Jupiter is involved with the inner planets, then that spirit of optimism and the feeling of life, and I'm going to consider him a mid planet. I think she is too. But when he's involved, so aspecting an inner planet like Mars, Venus, and Mercury, etc., then that spirit of optimism and the feeling of life as an adventure or quest gets mixed up with very personal areas of life. I would also include the luminaries, the sun and the moon there. Jupiter and Venus, for example, will together turn relationships into an adventure which can open up horizons for the person. Jupiter and Mercury will make learning and understanding a source of inspiration and adventure. When you put Jupiter with any of the personal planets or in the signs that they rule or their houses, then the ways in which the person will seek to expand and develop himself are fairly concrete and understandable and communicable. I need a little refresher there. But if you tie Jupiter up with outer planets, then the road of development and adventure and meaning leads away from the purely personal and into a much larger life, right? And the 10th house is Saturn ruled. So that's, well, she's calling Saturn sort of a mid planet. I consider him an outer planet. So when you have Jupiter on the midheaven, it's a big, larger than life kind of placement. The human family as a collective whole becomes the adventure. And this also can apply for Jupiter in the 7th as well. Jupiter, and what I'm saying kind of about Jupiter in the 10th in some regards, like you could have a, wealthy spouse or be quite well known. It'd be more so people would discover you one by one, whereas with it on your midheaven, you might be, you have a mass following to some, to some degree. All right. And also Jupiter on the ascendant could do that. It could be, bring a lot of attention to you. All right. But Jupiter on the ascendant too is the physical body. So you usually with Jupiter on the ascendant, if you're not like really big in exercising, which you could be, because Jupiter is very active, but he's also like the jolly Santa Claus of the zodiac. So if you do have Jupiter on the midheaven or in the first or second house, you be careful of overconsumption, because he does expand things. So it could, if you have, if one of your struggles in life has been, let's say, weight gain and loss, it could be Jupiter might be in your first or second house. But anyways, and so, kind of just knowing that, oh, okay, then sometimes you can kind of figure out the cures for it a little bit easier rather than looking at it as like calorie restriction. Anyways, which can be, what's the word? I want to say like, I'll say daunting. That's the word. The human family as a collective whole becomes the adventure, and it's a lot harder to articulate that in a way which is comprehensible. Jupiter, together with Uranus, for example, or in Aquarius or in the 11th, opens up the whole panorama of human evolution and social development and the growth of consciousness. It isn't just your ideas or my ideas, it's the world of ideas and their development through history. Or if you place Jupiter with Neptune, or in Pisces, or in the 12th, it's not so much a personal religious search that attracts you, but rather the vast theater of religious yearning as a whole, and the experience of human suffering and whatever meaning that there might be in it. You can see that Jupiter bound up with Neptune gets contaminated, in a way, with the religious spirit, rather than just your religious aspirations. Jupiter in the 12th house is a kind of mediator for the spiritual longings of the collective, and that can place a burden on the person who has it there because he immediately wants to help everybody. The sense of shared suffering and shared longing for grace and redemption will often push the person into a vocation which deals with people's pain. That's a good thing to know, because if I saw Jupiter in somebody's 12th, I think I have seen that once. It'd be kind of hard for me to make sense of that. 12th kind of be confusing, the 12th house, and Jupiter there is just kind of an odd placement. So I would be I'd be like, so I'd be thinking back to this. Okay, they might be really care about the human condition a lot and have dedicated their whole life to it. Anyways, sometimes these are the individuals who devote a lifetime to caring for ailing parents, or sacrifice a great deal of their own personal satisfaction because of the sense of human despair and longing. Could be somebody too that thinks like either that psychiatric or sort of kind of reminds me like Joe Rogan, how he talks about, psychedelics a lot. And I'm not saying anything anyway about that. I agree to some extent with him on his views on it, but it's like, I wouldn't be surprised, as passionate as he is about that, helping people through, psilocybin therapy, that could be very Jupiter in the 12th house. Okay. Anyways, or it could be someone like who's like local shroom dealer, like here, Okay, the problem with Jupiter in this context is that it's very easy to lose a sense of one's, but it also could be someone who believes like that people like today, that, we have a mental health crisis and we need to get prescription medical drugs out to people, and that's the way to go. So could take on a little bit more of a psychiatric type of pushing medicine too. So it could be like natural medicine or psychotropic medicine, I think is what it's called. The problem with Jupiter in this context is that it's very easy to lose a sense of one's own boundaries. There's a tendency to forget that one person cannot heal mankind. There's a tendency to forget, oh yeah, or understand everything about human development or carry everybody's shadow. Some clarity is needed because Jupiter inflates and sees hopeful visions which aren't always able to be achieved. I think we can learn a great deal from the meaning of the houses and signs opposite those three collective ones. Leo in the fifth house are opposite Aquarius in the 11th. So the balance to getting completely lost in an idea of the perfect social order and the perfect humanity is a little healthy selflessness and self-indulgence. Virgo and the sixth house are opposite Pisces. So remember we were covering the 8th, 11th, and 12th because those are the houses of the signs she's saying that have two rulers, two planet rulers, traditional and modern. So now she's going to their opposites. So Virgo and the sixth house are opposite. So if you've been following along, you know that, but if you're just joining us. So Virgo and the sixth house are opposite Pisces in the 12th. So the antidote to crucifying yourself in the name of alleviating other people's pain is a sense of physical boundaries and time and space and a recognition of limits, right? Because, one second. Virgo is all about, daily tasks and regimentation and tediousness and the details. So by going into that, it's sort of a cure for getting sucked into the collective long suffering of, drug addicts and spiritual gurus and, people in psychiatric wards. So there's every house has a lot of things in it. They just kind of all go in the same category, if that makes sense. So anyways, and so just hard work and daily habits and routine can be sort of the cure to people that are just, confused and out there, or really feel empathy of the collective. Taurus in the second house are opposite Scorpio in the 8th. And the thing which offsets drowning in the murk of other people's and one's own repressed desires and aggression and passions, which would be 8th house, is a good sense of your own taste, values, and the need for some permanence and security in your material life. Someone asked, so the cure for, you know, childhood trauma and secrets and other people's secrets and all the things that bog you down and trying to figure things out and, sexual hedonism possibly is, just going retail therapy, go shopping, buy some nice clothes, get back to the nitty gritty, right? That's the second house, Taurus. Someone asked earlier about Saturn in the 12th house. One of the things that I think Saturn represents is the defense mechanism of the organism. It's our skin, the psychic organ which structures and draws boundaries and protects and shuts out harmful or threatening experience. I think Saturn in the 12th is terribly sensitive to the chaotic unconscious dream world of the collective, but the person finds it terrifying and tries to defend himself against it. Kind of reminds me of what they'll say about like borderline personality types is it's like they wear their skin inside out, so it's very sensitive to the touch. That's what it kind of sounds like here. But I think Saturn in the 12th is terribly sensitive to the chaotic unconscious dream world of the collective, but the person finds it terrifying and tries to defend himself against it, either by walling it out altogether or trying to formulate it into definite, manageable, safe tools. And that could actually be where we get a lot of our really good like meditation techniques and things like that, or programs. It could be people trying to saddle trying to channel, I guess, their 12th house stuff into something more structured. but it actually helps more structured people tap into their more 12th house stuff. So it's, everything goes hand in hand. The house in which Saturn and Mercury kind of does that a bit too, if he touches anything spiritual. All right. The house in which Saturn falls in this arena of life is where you have the most fear, the most insecurity, and also, on a better note, the most determination to become self sufficient and conquer the frightening thing. In some ways, the 12th house Saturn is an excellent position for exploration of the inner world because it's so careful and cautious, right? So it's like adding that structure and really, you know, funneling it through kind of, I can't think of the word, like sifting. You're sifting out, you know, the confusion and you're making it clear. That's Saturn in a healthy way with 12th house Piscean type of stuff. Or if your Saturn's in Pisces, this might apply to you as well. Okay. Sometimes I've seen people who project the frightening forces of the collective onto external institutions and groups, and then they become very busy defending themselves from something they imagine is in the outside world. Obviously, that can lead to a lot of trouble with authorities and so on. So that could be sort of like activists in certain realms that maybe go a little overboard, or like it reminds me. I was listening to a Scientology thing, which I gotta be careful what I say about that. But and they were saying that, gosh, what was it? Uh, L. Ron Hubbard, you know, he had quite the imagination, but he put it, and that's what it was kind of like an insulting thing that had been said about him, but he put it into this very structured, regimented religion, so I wouldn't be surprised if his Saturn isn't in Pisces, because or something, or making some kind of square to something in Pisces. It's interesting because you guys will comment a lot right when I get on, and then you'll kind of stop. But anyways, I spoke earlier about Hitler with his. Maybe you're actually listening to me. That's impressive. Okay, I think we're just gonna finish this last paragraph, and I'm gonna have to wrap it up here. But I spoke earlier about Hitler with his 12th house Uranus. I think the receptivity to collective currents of ideas is enhanced when Uranus is in the 12th. One picks up things that are around as if they were a radio antenna, picking up all the latest broadcasts. And I'd say it's kind of static coming through at the same time, especially for the individual. If they have Uranus in the 12th, yes, that's a great way to describe it. That antenna is picking up signals, like all kinds of signals, right? Like I have Moon in the 12th, and I can kind of just know things, right? It's like intuitive. I just kind of know it and feel it. But if you have Uranus there, it's going to be like static coming through, like, because Uranus rules the radio waves and the television waves before we had, and maybe even Wi-Fi waves. So those kind of networks. So if you have Uranus in the 12th, you're tapped in subconsciously to all that, but it's coming through like static sometimes, and then there'll be like clear, maybe even clairaudience for some of them, clear thought. And so, I don't know, it could be a little erratic the way that they actually channel it and make decisions based on it, unless some of them kind of, just channel it into writing, but it's not necessarily. It's like I wouldn't want to date someone that I have Venus square Uranus with anymore, because I fell in that trap, because that's the 2 year above me trap I told you guys. But they make great friends, but not great stable lovers. It's like if you have Uranus in the 12th, you might really want to have a team around you, which would be sort of a cure for Uranian things, right? Like friends and networks and circles that really filters your thoughts before you put them out there to the world. Anyway, who am I to talk about that? But if you have Uranus in the 12th, you definitely want to have, what is it called? It's Napoleon Hill says it, a mastermind group that helps you to channel and clean up your ideas and put them in check before you just, yeah. Anyways, like if you have Uranus in the 12th, you'd want, and you have a YouTube channel, for example, you would want a little team that helps you edit and put everything together really well. I have Mercury square Uranus, and there's no time for the team for all that, but at least it's not happening in my 12th. My Uranus is my 3rd, so communication, lots of it everywhere. But it's the the third, I think I said it's in the third. The third house doesn't really have a lot of power. It's sort of like your siblings. Most of us, as children, at least with our siblings, don't have a lot of power. Like one minute they kicked us and yelled at us, and our parents are defending them, and then you did something wrong, but they're the one getting in trouble. So there's not a lot of power in the third house. It's still like a maturing energy. So if you got Uranus, in the lower hemisphere, you can probably get away with a little more of its erratic instability showing up in whatever area or sign, because it's almost like you're excused because you're young and immature. But if you have it in the upper hemisphere and it's creating activity, you may very well be held accountable to it, and maybe even posthumously if you don't have a good way to channel it, if your Uranus is in the upper hemisphere, and not, especially if it's not well aspected. So, okay, let me just get through this last paragraph because my guy is getting off work and texting me here. Um, we got to figure out what's for dinner. I meal prepped this week finally, and that was nice. So we didn't have to worry about it for like 3 days. And he loves to go out to eat all the time, which is really nice. But, more than I could have asked for is the guy that wants to take you out to dinner 2 or 3 times a week. But at the same time, it gets pricey and it's Christmas. So we're watching it through the end of the year. So we can get everything done that we need to get done. So anyways, I don't know why I went on that tangent, but I'm sure he's hungry. So I think the receptivity to collective currents of ideas is enhanced when Uranus is in the 12th. One picks up things that are around as if they were a radio antenna. I've noticed that a 12th house Uranus is often full of ideas and intuitions of a political kind, right? Because Uranus rules 11th house, which is cares about humanity, whether it's does it right by humanity is a different thing, right? Because dictators and stuff like that could have a lot of Uranus and Aquarius stuff, but it cares, it's concerned with it. So a political kind. What's going to happen in the world and who's going to do what to which country? And very often these intuitions are accurate. This can be a gift, but as with all the outer, and it could be sort of why Hitler was able to kind of gain the power he did, is knowing, okay, if I go left, I know the US will go right. So I'm going to be able to stay under their radar long enough to conquer this and this and this. That could be because there had to be some power in what he was doing for him to get as far as he got, you know. Um, I'm not saying that it was, obviously it's okay. I'm not saying like it was a good power, but when it comes to like Mars and Uranus, they're indifferent. They don't care. They just do what they do. Saturn and Pluto are malefic. They like Saturn sacrifice. He will sacrifice. Um, Pluto is death and then rebirth. So it has to be destroyed. And Pluto will actively do that if he feels he needs a reset. Okay. So watch out for Saturn and Pluto unless you're very much in harmony with them. And then they're your very powerful allies. Like Sun trine Pluto can be a very powerful ally, but Sun square Pluto is somebody who could, be very jealous of you and want to destroy you. Okay. They won't get as far with the sun because the sun's pretty powerful in itself. I think maybe even more powerful than Pluto, even though Pluto's a very powerful planet, quote unquote, or force. But it's like a dark force out in the cold. But it kind of, it's the furthest out that we know of, really, unless Chiron's a little further out than it. So, and if he is a little further out, which I don't think he is, that kind of, I just thought of a whole philosophy here. He's like helping to heal everything in between the sun and Chiron. Chiron is maybe the wounded warrior, but now I'm just getting really like just kind of brainstorming here. But Pluto being the way that he is, opposite like the sun or square the sun, he's kind of working this way and the sun's working this way. So the only reason Pluto sort of holds the power he does is because he's so far out of the sun's reach, in sort of a dark way, right? That the dark power that Pluto holds would be him kind of escaping in a good and bad, like escaping the optimism of the sun is maybe why he's lacking optimism, Pluto, sometimes, but also kind of going like, if you think of the tree of life, right? Going, I don't need light necessarily to operate. And that's powerful in itself because all these other planets need the sunlight, especially the Earth, obviously. And the moon needs the sunlight to have the power it does over us, for us to be able to read its phases and such. So anyways, light is very powerful as well. I'm so getting off now, you guys, but I spoke earlier about Hitler. Okay. And very often these intuitions are accurate. This can be a gift, but as with all the outer planets, there must be some strong sense of who you are as an individual, as well as a realistic observation of what the world is actually like at the moment. Otherwise, one just gets carried away, and the next movement that comes along takes you with it. Whether you were right or not about your political visions becomes rather irrelevant. So you may have been right in your predictions of what's going to happen, or being 2 steps ahead of your opponents, but it doesn't mean that you were right for the greatest good, and that you should have ultimately did what you did. Or I like, my grammar's really not that bad. Be doing what you did. Should have done what you did. Okay, all right. I like wordplay, so it gets me in trouble a little there. We still have a lot to go in lecture 4. This is all I can get to today. I was supposed to get on yesterday. It's gonna be the weekend soon. We'll see if I can make it on tomorrow. We have a big Christmas party Saturday, so I already got my outfit together, which is pretty good because I'll always be going thinking I have like black clothes to wear, and so I have so many black clothes, so I won't buy any. When I'm at the store, I'll go, oh, let me get something different. So I always think I have stuff, so I have this dress, and I'm like, I need a little shawl or jacket for it because it's like very thin strapped and it's winter here. So I'm going, okay, I'll have plenty of those. But then I was thinking about, I'm like, what do I really have? Like, what am I really going to be going for last minute? And going, man, I wish I would have got. So I went down to, I don't know if you guys have them where you're from, but Burlington Coat Factory is pretty cool. And they only had like 3 different little jackets, like what I was looking for the dress. But the first one I saw, I'm like, I don't even remember what it looked like. I'm like, maybe they have stuff like this. I'm not sure, because I was thinking maybe just be more casual zip ups. So then I saw one, and I'd seen some like it on Amazon, but they didn't have great reviews, and they were like 25 bucks. I got it for like $6.99, and I didn't have to wait 3 days for it to get here. Got to try it on, and it fit perfect, and it will go perfect with the dress. So I don't know. Why I'm going on this tangent, but basically I was pretty excited to find it like immediately for the price that I did, and not have to be scrambling last minute on Saturday when we go to the Christmas party, like, oh, what am I going to wear with this? Why didn't I ever replace anything? So as I get older, I get more intentional about my wardrobe and stuff, because having a Libra rising, I love clothes, but the problem is I can kind of, maybe it's the Virgo moon or something else. I hoard clothes, so then it's like I think I have everything, but really there's like certain key pieces I'm missing at times. So now I'm just cleaning, cleansing, and keeping nice pieces, and trying not to just have, it's like quality over quantity, basically, is what I'm coming into with that. Because when I can't even find the quality stuff because it's buried under the other crap, then, then I have my good days where it comes together, and my days where I don't. But then the day I need it to, that's what I'm working on. So anyways, speaking of holiday specials, do be sure to get on, if you're single and looking, enter moonmatch.love, the database. It's 50% off for the rest of the year, which is going to be over very shortly. So check it out. You can go to moonmatch.love. You can type it in your browser. That'll get you there the quickest, and enter the database before the end of the year if you haven't already and you're not in a current relationship. All right, I'm sending you all lots of love and light, and I will probably be back, early next week again, Monday or Tuesday, but you never know. Like and subscribe and click the notification bell just in case I pop on randomly. All right, I'll see y'all later. I think my guy just got home. The camera's going off, so see ya.